When it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. I'm thankful for it. It provided me with a whole lot of great opportunities, opportunities to see the world. Yeah, I think I was very fortunate to find what I wanted to do very, very young. Even though it is old for somebody as a musician, still very young compared to most people. I think it's always really important to kind of harken back to what I just said, create something that has residual and stable income with it.
Hi everyone, welcome to Second Half Chronicles. My name is Jeremy Olson and I'm your host. And today we did something a little bit different. We interviewed our very first man, our first male on the show. Super excited to introduce Patrick Worley. So Patrick is a passionate owner and driving force behind Music Lessons Las Vegas, an innovative online database connecting students with skilled teachers and tutors. Through his platform at www.lessonslasvegas.com, Patrick has created a dynamic space for music enthusiasts to discover, connect, and engage with top-notch instructors. Patrick's YouTube channel also is a treasure trove of valuable content featuring tutorials, performances, and a wealth of music knowledge. His engaging videos not only highlight his expertise, but also serve as an inspirational resource for aspiring musicians. Patrick Worley's multifaceted approach to music education has positioned him as a dedicated advocate for fostering talent and creating a supportive online community. His entrepreneurial spirit, combined with his music prowess, makes him a notable figure in the realm of virtual music education. So I welcome Patrick Worley today. Hi, everyone. We're back with Second Half Chronicles. I'm Jeremy Olson. I'm your host, and I'm here with an amazing guest, Patrick Worley. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so Patrick and I actually met, funny enough, on a trip to Japan together. So that was kind of random. We met probably briefly before we went.
Yeah, once or twice, I think, just in the prep for Japan, for the getting everything ready for it. So
I know it's just once for me. You met with me. I was able to meet with the group, and then all of a sudden there we were in Tokyo together.
Yep, one time, and then the next time halfway across the globe.
Right. Good times. Yeah. So I want to have Patrick on. He has a lot of experience in a lot of really, really fun things. And let's start off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Patrick Worley, and I guess we'll just get right into what I do and why I'm here. I'm a musician, and it's the only thing I know how to do. I've invested quite a bit of time and quite a bit of years into it, and my background is really in classical and jazz stuff. Even though I studied for my undergraduate degrees right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. So I did my undergraduate degrees, have a music performance degree and a music business degree. Finished that, in my early 20s, and then spent the rest of my 20s working in Nashville. I went to MTSU, which is about 30 minutes outside of Nashville, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee State. And that was a lot of fun. That provided a lot of really great opportunities. I spent my 20s playing rock and country stuff kind of on the road and in the studios, supporting artists like that. And it was awesome through my 20s when you didn't have to actually make a living and stuff like that. When it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. I'll just say that.
Right, right.
It's either feast or famine with that. So I was thankful for it. It provided me with a whole lot of great opportunities, opportunities to see the world and to play with some really great artists and stuff like that. But in my late 20s, around 28, 29, I kind of got fed up with doing that, especially since I was playing a lot of country stuff, and I'm a classical musician.
Right. So you're okay, I'm ready to.
Yeah, ready to move on. You know what I mean? And so my way of doing that was I auditioned around for graduate school. And when I auditioned at UNLV here in Las Vegas, I stumbled into a teaching job there too. So I actually taught as adjunct faculty, part-time instruction there at the university while I was going through a master's there. Too. And I did that while I was a performance major, which is studying how to perform it. Ended up changing to music education for several reasons, but ended up changing to music education and finishing my degree in music education. So master's in music education. And I've taught at another school since then, another university. Taught at Dixie State, which is in St. George, Utah. I think it's called Utah Tech now or something.
It
Something like
is.
that. Yeah.
I've
Okay.
heard
So
of that.
familiar with it. Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Okay. Very good. I did that for a couple years, and I don't do that anymore. Now that I'm here in town, I teach quite a bit. I have a very large and active private studio, and I have some other entrepreneurial endeavors, with music, which I'm sure we'll discuss. So that's me in a nutshell. Too. Like I said, it's music is the only thing I know how to do.
That's so
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And you've made a living doing music.
The only thing I've done as an adult. Yeah.
All these years.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, we'll get more into that as well. So I have a question that I ask my guests. Mm-hmm. So do you have any influences you'd like to share? And this question, I kind of like to ask this for my younger listeners, if there's any out there. Okay, do you have any influences in your first half that you view as positive, helpful, or supportive?
Yeah, several. And you're referring to, I guess, like influences, not necessarily people or anything like that?
It doesn't even matter. Like, what are you thinking? Like,
okay. Well, I mean, I can share how I got into music and then into classical music, too, with that. I think that would probably be a good place to start with that. So nobody in my family is a musician, not in my immediate family.
Okay.
Perhaps in the extended family they are, but my dad is a computer scientist who worked for NASA.
Okay.
Very cerebral. And, he's an artist for a son, and my sister is an artist as well, which is kind of odd. We always question how that happened, but we make it work. So I started playing music seriously pretty late in life for somebody who does it as a profession.
Okay. So what do you like? What's late in life then?
Late in life for somebody who does it as a profession. I started taking it seriously my freshman year of high school. So
right.
That was right about when I turned 15, like a month or two before I turned 15.
Right. And most kids are starting to their
6
lessons
years old,
when
like who do it professionally, 6, 7 years old, like that.
Okay.
I made up for it though, and I'll talk about that.
Too.
Yeah. So we were just over at a friend's house during homecoming week one time, and he had a guitar and I dabbled with it, but I had never really taken it seriously or played it at all. And so I knew how to play a few chords and things like that.
Okay.
But there were maybe 20 or 30 of us over at his house just hanging out during during homecoming week, a bunch of guys and girls. And he had a magazine that had some music from an artist that I really liked, that I was listening to a lot then.
Okay.
And it was Dave Matthews at the time.
Oh,
really
Dave Matthews.
Yeah, just name drop Dave Matthews in the middle
okay,
of it. Not like he needs the press.
I was actually going to ask you what artist it was.
It was Dave Matthews. I could see your face, and I knew that question was coming. So, Dave Matthews. And he had a guitar there, so I just pulled out his guitar and started playing it. And the next time I looked up at the clock, this was probably like 10 o'clock in the evening when I started playing. And the next time I looked up at the clock, everybody had gone home or gone to bed, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning. So I've been playing for about 6 hours, and it felt like 20 minutes to me.
Oh my gosh.
And I can still do that. Life tends to get in the way, and you have, bills to pay and chores to do and errands to run. But I can still practice for 12 hours a day without it being an issue.
Okay.
If I have the time.
So prior to that, you hadn't really had your hands on a guitar necessarily?
I knew how to play a few chords. So I knew how to play like maybe 1 or 2 songs on the guitar.
And you didn't have one at home?
I had my dad's guitar.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that was the guitar that I learned on.
Oh, okay.
Too, and that's how I had dabbled with that.
Okay.
Too.
Okay.
Yeah. I knew how to play, like 1 or 2 songs on the guitar, just for a frame of reference, something like that.
But what really got you started was you sitting there and doing that for that 6 hours and just loving it.
Yeah,
so much.
And I knew immediately. I didn't exactly know where I was going to end up with it, but I knew I wanted to do something with music, then too.
Oh
and I made up for that time over high school, because that happened at the beginning of high school, and I would say I put about 10,000 hours into it by the end of high school too. So over 4 years, I cranked out about 10,000 hours, which is what they say is the minimum for an expert level.
Is 10,000 hours.
I would say I put in about 10,000 by the time I had graduated high school.
Okay. Okay. Oh my goodness. So, how wonderful. And then you went right into college. You knew that was what you were going to study in college?
So that was, I played all kinds of other stuff for about a year. And then my sophomore year in high school is when I got into classical music. So I got into classical music about a year after I started playing guitar too. Yeah, and there were a couple of reasons for that, but then classical really took hold even more so with it. And the only thing I played until I graduated college was classical music. Then, and then I got into the Nashville scene because I was in that area, so I got into it
For
for
sure.
work too.
And yeah, you can be paid to play
Correct.
music.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
And you can still do that here. It's just in a different context.
Yeah.
I think you can do it really anywhere, but it's hard. It's hard to live well as a musician. Vegas is one of the only cities I think where it's quite possible to live very well as a musician because the business here centers around entertainment. And
Right.
it's like now I play a lot of weddings and corporate events and dinner
Mhm.
parties and stuff like that, and that stuff is always happening.
Yeah.
So,
And then of course all the shows on the strip are always happening if you ever
yeah.
needed to jump into those.
Yes,
Right.
for sure. And I don't play in those. I have a lot of colleagues that are in that.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, I could see something like that potentially happening. Maybe
if you
maybe later.
decided to, it's a big commitment.
It
6
is.
nights a week,
and this 5 or 6 nights a week, and then to be honest with you, one of the biggest reasons why when I was in Nashville, I did a lot of fill-in work for a lot of like big time country artists and studio work.
Mhm.
I have colleagues that are regulars for
Mhm.
some of the biggest names in country music now. I was always really hesitant to do that because when it's really good when you have the gig, but then at some point that goes away,
Right.
because if you're some people who don't know how the music business works, there aren't really bands anymore. It's more like an artist pays their musicians to play with them. And
Right.
so what do you do when your artist wants to take 2 years off? You could have a great gig, you could be playing with the biggest names out there. You'd be playing with Taylor Swift.
Right.
But she doesn't need to. She didn't need a tour. She has money coming in from music publishing, from merchandise sales,
Yeah, and if
from
your artist
sponsorships.
Takes off to write song. I mean, they take off a lot of time to write their next
Yeah,
album or
what I mean? Taylor Swift
XYZ.
could take a decade off. Like
She
that.
sure could.
And she would be fine.
She'd take the rest of her life off, but
and then
we don't want her to.
Right, yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Everybody loves T Swift, right?
Yeah.
But it's when that goes away.
Right.
If you're not the person who has the creative interest in stuff,
Right.
you're just out of luck. And so, I would really the other endeavors that I do with music are more in me owning the creative interest in it and in creating things that I have control over, namely for that reason. Too.
Okay, so you've gone through this fun time in your 20s and
Mhm.
you played with big bands and you did all these things. And then, I don't know, kind of tell us a little bit about where you're at now and like moving forward. So where are you at now? Tell us about all the things you have going that give you that lifestyle that you wanted to have as a working musician.
Yeah, sure, for sure. So I think it's always really important to kind of hearkening back to what I just said, create something that has residual and stable income with it.
Uh-huh.
And playing professionally is like really not it, just for the reasons that I said, because it doesn't matter how good you are. If you're just a backing musician, that gig can go away for any reason whatsoever.
Right.
They might, I'm not going to get into the specifics about this, but I know, like, for example, I know people here in town who played with one of the big artists who had a residency. Here,
Right.
And they decided to go on tour once the residency was done. And the people in the pit, some of the people that I know didn't make it on that cut just because they just didn't like the way they looked, or, the management they didn't have the right look for the show that they were doing.
Right.
So that is playing only professionally is incredibly risky and very difficult to do no matter how good you are.
Right.
So my big thing for creating sustainable income was teaching. I really like to teach. I enjoy it immensely. I like seeing my students do well with music and seeing their passion in it. So I've always taught. It's always been a big part of what I do. And even when I was in Nashville, I did that a lot. Now moving out here, I've built a really large teaching studio. I try to keep it at about 100 students. So I teach about 50 hours a week.
Oh, wow.
I do 30-minute lessons.
Yeah.
And at the moment I have like low 90s. So it's still quite a bit though.
Yeah. So those are your students, that many?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They come to my house. I teach them out of a room like similar to what you have here for the studio and things like that too.
Yeah, because looking at your website, I know you also have other musicians that teach. And
yes. So we'll talk about that.
Wow.
So that's one of my things that I have. I have two websites. I have my own personal website, which is just my name.com. I'll name drop it here. Just
Yes.
patrickworley.com for that one. If you want to go check me out and like listen to me play and watch some videos of it.
Yes, we're going to have all of this in the show notes
Yes.
for sure.
Or buy product or anything like that, guys. You can do it there. But I had another site that was just devoted to my teaching business too. So 2 different ones. That one was just me and strictly about my teaching for a long time.
Right.
My private lessons. And so I had tried a bunch of different advertising methods with that too. I've done every kind of advertising imaginable, like social media posts and print posts and going to places and passing out stuff.
Right. Right.
And that stuff, it worked. It helped to build it. But what I really ended up investing into was making just a very powerful website that was very easy to find too. So, and I rebranded it as just lessonslasvegas.com, Music Lessons Las Vegas, which was not taken. So I nabbed it.
Nice.
And it was just me for a long time. And so what happened is I invested heavily into search engine optimization, which if you're unfamiliar with that, it's placement on search engines. And there's a lot of studies that just most people don't go past the first page. Most people don't even go past the first couple of things that you look at on there. And with some luck and things like that, I actually ended up with the most powerful site in Las Vegas. It beat out national sites and things like that. It was the very first thing that came up on there.
Yes.
And so what that did for me is max me out. It got me to the students that I have now.
Okay.
Too. And because I didn't need the space anymore, and because I have the income coming in and complete ownership over my business with that too, I can now twist that around into other things. So, for example, with that site, because I didn't need it for myself anymore, I can't teach any more students.
Right.
I flipped it into like a directory site, kind of like a database of music instructors too.
Right.
And so now, if you go to lessonslasvegas.com, you can find teachers in any instrument on there. So,
right.
And there's about 30 instruments now, ranging from voice to the most recent one that signed up on there was a DJ instructor a couple of weeks ago. So you can actually spin on the ones and twos with it if you feel so inclined to. But there's everything with it now. There's violin instructors and accordion teachers and more popular instruments too, like piano and things like that too.
Oh, so, I love that.
Yeah.
You know what? I love this. You walking us through this transition of being young, getting into your passion, working in your 20s and something, and then making it just really drive it home into your second half, which is what we're here talking about.
Yeah.
I just the experience that people in their second half have, just everything that you kind of go through to get to this point. It's just pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think I was very fortunate to find what I wanted to do very, very young, even though it is old for somebody as a musician, still very young compared to most people. And I don't think I had anything to do with that. Perhaps, just by the grace of God or fortune or however you want to look at it.
Well, you put in the grit. I think you have a lot to do with it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess I can take some of the credit for that. But, also I don't think I had anything to do with finding what I was passionate about. I think that was kind of like by chance, you know what I mean?
That.
And getting that far into it. So
I love that. Okay, so I have a question here.
Sure.
Where do you see yourself going in the future in your second half? I mean, you're still pretty young, but I don't know. Let's say we're all lucky enough to live another 40, 50 years. Where do you see yourself going from here?
Yeah. Well, so the site, really, I think overall what I see myself transitioning into is using my passion for teaching, but switching that around into teaching musicians how to actually make a living with it, as opposed to teaching music.
My goodness.
So, and that's something that musicians are just, I'll be as tactful as I can here. They're not very good at it, like in general, artists.
Right. And they should, and that's okay.
Which is fine.
They're doing their passion.
Yeah.
I have a background in, my ex-husband was a musician. We were together 13 years, and that's the way he made his living, and it was very difficult. So I love what you just said.
Yeah, it's I think that there's a big gap with that too, and a big problem that can be solved with it.
Yeah,
and it's a skill that most musicians don't have and they've never taken the time to develop it. And I think that there's several reasons for that. I think though that it's something that I can really lend myself to as a teacher, and really provide musicians with
Yeah.
more ways to make income and teach them how to do it. So,
Yeah.
if anything, what I could see myself transitioning into is more pivoting out of actually teaching music and teaching other musicians how to live their passion, and
That
how to
is
continuously make a living and live well with it.
that is, you know what? That whole industry needs a hard look
Yeah.
because those people in their second half are kind of left dwindling.
Yeah.
They don't have their
Sure.
401ks set up.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go to corporate America or work on Wall Street,
Mm-hmm.
etc., and have all these stocks and all that stuff. And so they're left in their second half like, now what? And maybe they don't have the look
Mm-hmm.
that they're supposed to have to go on stage or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're amazingly talented. So I had no idea.
Yeah.
Just sitting in this interview right now, I like literally had no idea that that's what you were going to say.
Yeah.
And it
Like
makes
I told you we'd have a few surprises.
It makes me so excited to
Yeah.
support that group.
Yeah.
And see where it can go. You never know where this can go in the next 20 years. I love that.
Yeah, and I kind of have I have it pretty meticulously planned out. There's going to have to be some things that come in, and some of the other businesses are really going to have to start making money. But essentially, it involves around taking the income from that and leveraging more businesses out of it.
Oh
with
my
ways
goodness.
to do that.
That is
yeah.
so amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about. I have some wrap up sentence finishers.
Sure.
Okay. So this one is: the world needs to realize that those in their second half are.
The world needs to recognize what is that's a good one. I like that. I think the second half can be a lot better than the first half, to be honest with you. And like, again, I think my situation is very different than most people, because I did find what I wanted to do really young, and I did not go out very much, in my high school years and through my early 20s. I was really invested in that.
You're
too.
playing the guitar.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Stunted my growth and some social things, but that's okay. I caught up on that, and I definitely wouldn't trade it for anything. That's for sure, to be able to do what I do now on it, But I think that the second half, you're never really done. I think there's a great peace and a great realization that comes with fully understanding that you have the same number of minutes and seconds in a day as anybody else, and it's up to you with what you make out of it until you're not here anymore. I think hopefully we all assume that, and we all continue to do things that can benefit ourselves, and by so doing benefit other people with it too.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So glad I brought you on here. Okay, another sentence finisher.
Sure.
I'd like to tell everyone in their first half to.
This is a good one, because being that I teach, quite a bit, and music, and I do have a very strong studio with students that compete and do college auditions and things like that too.
Awesome.
I would definitely say that the earlier that you can find what you're passionate about, the better off you are.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to what I said about the seconds and minutes in a day, that time is going to pass regardless of what we all do. Like tomorrow, we're 20 minutes older than we were 20 minutes ago when we started this thing.
Mm-hmm.
That time is going to pass anyway. And those in their first half, the earlier that you can realize what you want to do and make the decision to be excellent at it too.
Yeah.
The better off your life is going to be too. So
that's some great advice.
That is that's my whole job is giving advice to most people who are younger than me in my studio. I have some older students, but being a music teacher, 80% of my clientele is under 18 too, and so I've had that conversation a lot with a lot of people over the years too.
Yeah.
But you don't really have a choice of living or dying. You just have a choice of the way that you do it. And that's incredibly important to realize at the youngest age possible, I think. So.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So this is about you. Hands down, in my second half, I will.
Well, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I don't think I'll ever retire. I think that I have a lot of stuff to do. And I would say, well, hands down, I can't say that it's going to happen, but I will do everything that I possibly can to make my full realization about what I want to affect on the music business come to fruition with it.
You will.
So,
I think that's such a great endeavor, just from living as a wife on the other side of that. It needs to happen. There needs to be a really good look at that industry, and I'm like behind you all the way.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, all right. Where can people find you, support you, and follow you? So why don't you just say that here? I'm going to put it in the show notes, but I want you to say it since this is a podcast.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So you can find me on my personal website, which is just myname.com. That's patrickworley.com, PATRICKWORLEY.com. And on there, you'll find stuff about me as a musician and my background, and you can buy product on there. I have lesson packages and stuff like that on there too. The lessons website that we were referring to is lessonslasvegas.com. And on that, this podcast goes internationally or just nationally right now?
I think internationally. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Okay, so it's on all that stuff. Yeah. You can take lessons with anybody. Some of the best musicians in the world are in Las Vegas because they play in these shows. These are musicians that have gone to schools like Juilliard, that are child prodigies now playing in these shows and things like that. So you can take lessons with some of these people on there too. They teach virtually. They teach locally here in town.
Anyone speak any other languages?
Yeah, many of them do, because a lot of them are foreign too. Mm-hmm. So and that would range just all over the world too.
Okay.
And again, that's lessonslasvegas.com. You can find a lesson and a teacher. You can find lessons and teachers in any instrument you can imagine on there. So.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else? And I'm sure you're on Facebook.
Yes, you can find me on Facebook and on Instagram. Instagram is my personal one is Patrick Worley 82 on there. And you can see some other new projects. Like I have a travel video thing that we didn't talk about today, but you can see me playing cool music in really cool places.
In Japan.
In Japan, in the Grand Canyon. I just did one up in Canada. Yeah, so stuff like that.
Love it.
So that's Patrick Worley 82 on Instagram. On Facebook, my personal one is patrick.worley.3 on there. And then you can also find just Music Lessons Las Vegas on both of those also, just by doing a simple search.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Having me. That was awesome.
And we will see you guys, or hopefully you'll hear from us next time. And live boldly, love Jeremy and Patrick. Thank you so much for listening today. Please show some love to all of us at Second Half Chronicles by giving us a follow or subscribing. And please share an episode with a friend. It would mean the world. Until next time, live boldly, love Jeremy.